they need to look for.
Okay.
They're going to determine if there's anything
That was just your report
there.
to us.
Huh?
That was just a report to us.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I have gone through these. I saw them when they were live. I contacted someone from law enforcement when it happened, and I think these are credible threats. My family and I have not shown back up to the rallies because of these threats. I feel that they're serious. They should be taken seriously. I'm glad you have investigated it. I disagree with Alderman Carper that these are not viable as far as a black person who has been on that corner more than once. These are very scary to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the council?
Just a comment.
Alderman Carper.
Mr. Mayor. I agree with you, Ms. Alderman Brown Edwards. They are very serious. But from a legal point of view, they are social media statements. They do not rise to the level of any legal definition of assault, battery, cyber threat, murder, anything. There is no criminal activity made in making comments on social media. That's one of the big problems with social media, is that it's considered all free speech until it gets to a much worse level, and there's nothing that we can do about it. If the Black Lives Matter protests go out with their signs that say Black Lives Matter, and they get counter protests that say all lives matter, we can't criminalize either one of those because they're words. Their thoughts, their beliefs, they are not actions.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the concerns.
But it's the same thing.
It is not this. A counter protest and threatening lives is two different things.
I'm talking only about what we have here, and they are.
And there's not a counter protest on here, so you're speaking about something totally different.
They are protected by the First Amendment freedom of speech. They cannot be criminalized. And if you don't believe me on it, talk to Ms. Scalf.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the council? Ms. McMeekan, you wanted the floor. Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. A couple of facts that might help clarify for the community. There's actually 3 separate groups doing these protests, okay? And 2 of them are grassroots and not organized, but they are black-led. They are a response to black community members whose children are so depressed that they felt like they wanted to do something. So the group that's up at Chandler Park, that's led by black moms or moms with black children who are afraid to go outside their homes. And when they've been up there, even as one of the interviews for the radio station or for the paper was being given last week, people were going by yelling white power and F you, and sure, they have free speech. But that group, because they are so vulnerable and they have especially vulnerable moms and children, our Racial Justice Coalition reached out to them to provide logistical support, marshals, and also to train some of their friends how to de-escalate, because we are to never escalate on our end, no matter how mean and hateful somebody may be to us. Sometimes people get angry and they, lose track of themselves, and we understand that. But that was not our protest. We didn't set it up. We just went there to be a resource and to record as witnesses. The reason why we were aware of the threats was because some of our black members sent us screenshots, of which a lot of those are missing. And may I ask, did you ever ask Editor Michelle Langout if she had any more of those since she did the article on it?
I did not.
I would suggest you do that, because many local black community members have shared images and screenshots. People from Bushnell have talked about, let's head over to Macomb and drive them over. And I didn't get on there soon enough to grab that screenshot before somebody pulled it down. And I wish I had. Our social media teams do try to do that, but we missed that piece of evidence. Then when a different group did it over in Bushnell, they had someone say, oh my God, I can't believe this. Somebody get over there and take care of them. And another person talking about, let's just start this civil war and get over with. I'm locked and loaded. These,
Excuse me, I got to interrupt here for a second,
Yeah.
Ms. McMeekan. Did people say this directly to you, or are you reporting what somebody else told you? Or
I'm
what you
reporting
heard
what's
from
been
other
brought
people?
to us with screenshots and such, but we didn't think
That's not my question. Did you hear a person make those statements that you are just repeating to us?
on the internet, through Facebook, no.
Did you hear anybody making those statements?
I didn't hear them, no.
Did you read them on the internet?
Yes.
Well, we don't have any evidence of that.
Yeah, it's
And-
a shame that the
And in your
editor
letter
was.
last week to us, you said that the McDonough County Voice article reported online threats by county residents threatening to murder the Black Lives Matter protest.
Yes.
And that's what we are asking our police department to investigate.
Okay.
And this is the information that was provided by the alleged victims of those threats. So if
So-
you have more information, I would much prefer that you show us the evidence you have than in continually coming in here and repeating something that you had, but you just mistakenly do not have evidence of it that you can show us. We cannot take your word for it.
Well, take
We
my word
can't
for it,
take
because I saw
anybody's
those
word
posts
for
as
it.
well.
Ladies, Alderman
I'm
Carper has
almost
the word.
done, and then you can speak, Ms. Brown Edwards, okay? Ms. McMeekan, if you have evidence to give us, then you should bring it in instead of continually coming in here and repeating what you have heard or what other people have heard and told you.
These are,
Because evidence is what we need
Please
to do
don't point your finger at me. I
investigations.
understand.
Evidence is what we need, and we need proof. And if we don't have proof, we cannot take any action in regards to any threats that any of us have heard through the grapevine.
and point of clarification, we're not asking for you to file charges against them in that letter. We are asking you to make a statement condemning the hatefulness and the vitriol. And the Southern Poverty Law Center is very clear that, and there's been over 80 Black Lives Matter protests driven into by trucks in the last 6 weeks nationwide. It's happened in Bloomington, Quad Cities, across the river, St. Louis, Davenport, Bettendorf, and the level of heat of vitriol that's been turned up, we don't care if people yell at stuff at us. That's not our issue. When they are talking about their guns, and they are talking about, let's just get all the truckers together and we can take care of them. They won't be able to do anything about us. It's more about how our black community members, and to be clear, when I speak here, I am speaking on behalf of the fears brought to us. It is not our job to collect the evidence. We are volunteers, as am I. I am doing my best to bring you awareness of the fears being brought to us. Now, Celeste was holding one event, and so she was contacted and gave those, and I did help the police get in contact with her, and she gave that evidence. That's great. I never heard anything else about it until the last 2 days from the police, so I wasn't asked for further evidence on that. And if Michelle Langout, who's reported on it, wasn't even approached, she has a lot of evidence that she has gotten in real time from other people. But my issue as a leader of our org, we need because Tammy Lee has already done this, we need all of our white community members, our white leaders, right, here, to say any implication of violence against those peacefully expressing their First Amendment rights and enjoying their rights to peaceably assemble isn't just awful. It is unacceptable, and we expect better out of our community members, and we will bring to bear the greatest possible public consequences, even if it's just a call out. We know you probably can't hold anyone accountable for this stuff, but if you do not set a base floor of it with community expectation that you all actually care about our lives, and I'm going to bring up, I will be addressing the council next week, I'm going to bring you some tweets from your police chief talking about, hey, protesters, if you don't like it, head to Canada. Am I to believe that he cares about keeping us safe? Anyway, Tammy Lee had questions.
Alderman Brown Edwards.
I'm just disgusted and upset, and I yield back. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
I'll also bring up one other thing. They had a protest on Friday night. Was it Friday or Wednesday? I can't remember now. But we sent some of our team members up there.
So for the record, you said they. Could you just clarify
Yeah, so
who they are?
the Black Lives Matter group, and they're going to be holding a weekly protest
It's on Wednesdays, I believe.
every Wednesday night. That is not us.
Okay.
We are there to advise, provide water, logistics, whatever. If somebody gets hurt, to help, because these are young people. For the first time, many of them just beginning to learn to speak up on behalf of their black children who are very frightened in this community. And it is a very different experience for our black members living in this community when they hear the comments or when your silence on this stuff. It is very frightening to them. And they know, I mean, the longstanding history is very clear that when leaders are silent, it is taken as consent by people with the worst possible impulses. And I will tell you that we have trained human rights observers that we have sent just to take, because we just thought for safety, we'll just monitor this. And each week the vitriol has gotten worse. The trucks have gotten worse. They've gotten closer. They're smoking people out. Last time, one came by 3 times yelling hateful stuff, each time racist. Lots and lots of racist stuff. And this guy cut across lanes of traffic, and if his foot, and I'm speaking as a former paramedic, and you know I was a good one back then and cared about traffic, right? This is what I care about, is the safety. If that guy's foot, while he was angry and leaning out the other window and screaming at us, if his foot would have slipped off that brake, some of our people would have gotten hurt. And some of them include children. So, what we want out of you, first and foremost, please issue a statement condemning any implication of threats, any implication that they don't have every right to go up there and peaceably stand up for a human rights stance. Black Lives Matter is not a partisan issue, it is a human rights stance. And they are up there trying to help their children see that they care, that they're frightened, that they care, that they don't feel welcome in this community, that they care, that somebody is going to treat them hatefully. But the fact that we have a culture here now where there are so many, at one of them a week and a half ago, when I was coming in from the north, and I read about that in the letter, that guy who blew through the stop light, he wasn't looking to hit me. He almost hit me. But more importantly, he's driving like this. And being so hateful, he blew through the entire stoplight and kept going. If there had been pedestrians there, that would have been a tragedy. And that stoplight blowing is happening at every one of them, and also racist comments are happening. It would be great to have an actual stance come out of this body that says we care about even our Black Lives Matter protesters, even if we don't agree with them. But again, it's a human rights stance.
Understand.
And they deserve our allegiance too.
Ms. McMeekan, thanks for being here tonight. I'll be happy to issue a statement here in just a moment. Just a quick question. Were you contacted by the city police on these last 2 incidents you just mentioned?
Yes, in the last few days, which I do appreciate.
Okay.
And again, this issue is about the perception of what is tolerated here.
Understand.
Right? We need to change that, because right now, they have the idea that that stuff's okay, and every week it's getting worse. We need to say something.
Sure. Well, a couple of things, if you'll allow me. I think you may be aware, I'm not sure. I've attended several of those grassroots Black Lives Matter demonstrations at that corner, and saw firsthand and had interaction with folks that you have identified as young people, very first time that they're involved in this type of activity. Would concur with your observations and have encouraged them to be active as they are. Probably know some of them very well personally that were up there. And I applaud their efforts at being involved and want to assure them that the city has their safety in mind. Absolutely. Anybody peaceably assembling has every right to do that, and we will do everything in our power to assure their safety when they're engaged in that activity. You have my assurance in that. I do not want to speak for the council, but I would say that they feel the same way. Our police chief, deputy chief have those folks' safety in mind when they go to work every day. And if that's not apparent by our actions, we'll make sure that it's apparent by our actions.
If I may,
Yes, ma'am.
we will send you some of the tweets and the Facebook posts from our police chief, dehumanizing liberals who protest and dehumanizing people who protest Trump.
And we can have that discussion. I understand where you're coming from. So you have my assurance that our police, this community, its leaders are fully supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement here locally, and I would say that many of our local leaders have been up there participating. I know some of the aldermen have been doing it, city staff have been there, and I have been there for the purpose of supporting that kind of activity and supporting the cause that they represent. So,
will you condemn the hateful comments as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. That's what they need to hear.
And absolutely, and I will tell you that I heard some myself. But as Alderman Carper has pointed out, that's free speech, and as egregious as it is and as hateful as it is, and how disappointed I was as a community leader to hear that, we are limited in what we can do, other than what I'm doing right now, and that's condemning it.
That's what we're asking. Again,
Absolutely.
We're not asking you to break the law or make new law. We're just asking you to speak directly to those people and let them know you have every right to your opinion. Feel free to counter-protest us across the way.
Well, and to that regard, everyone has to do their best to be peaceable. Mm-hmm. And I am very concerned about the escalation of this. I think as we draw closer to a presidential election, it's likely to get more heated, and I would encourage everyone to be mindful of everyone else's right to peaceably assemble. It's absolutely essential in our community to make sure that we abide by that. We just can't afford anything less.
One last thing I will tell you is that we had a white man come up, and he was there to disrupt any of us from getting to engage in any level of our freedom of expression. He got in our faces, refused a mask. He kept on escalating. He stood way too close. Now, we backed him off.
And the police were called, is that correct?
And we called the police when he would not, and then he just stood in the road. He just stood in the road and blocked it.
But the police responded and corrected.
Police responded, and they let him walk away, but the police left, and then he sat there in his truck the rest of the time looking at us hatefully and scaring people. So now a lot of those black folks who were with us last week are not going to come back.
Okay.
So
Well,
they won.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I just want to make clear that the police did respond and deal with the gentleman. Is that correct?
It would have been better had he been given some type of citation for disorderly conduct or blocking the road, because maybe he wouldn't have sat there scaring everybody the rest of the time.
Okay.
We need a little more.
All right.
That'd be okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Brown Edwards, I'm sorry.
Mrs. McMeekan, I wanted to let you know that I have had discussions with the mayor and the city attorney condemning hate speech and symbols of hate in Macomb, and I will provide a statement as well in the future for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We are greatly appreciative of that. That is what we ask. Please set a standard expectation. We know people are going to violate that. And a lot of times we can't hold them accountable. You know, if it's just free speech, it's free speech, and that's fine. But free speech that causes people to fear expressing their First Amendment rights, that's above and beyond. And that should at least be called out. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this agenda item? Carrie? Thank you, Ms. McMeekan. Does anyone wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda?